Good evening, this is Anthony checking in from Spring Lake, Michigan. Today I'll be talking about case study 7-2, which is the Solutions Network Inc. a GBV case. So the main arguments or rationalizations in the case are that Sarah Young is disagreeing with Paul Henley. Sarah is the controller of the company Solutions Network, and Paul Henley is the CFO. The transaction in question is a sale of software that Solutions Network developed. It's selling that software to another company, which is called Data System Solutions, DSS. But that transaction should really be classified as a swap transaction, since both companies will be using the software for internal purposes, and Solutions Network is selling the software to the other company in December, and is expecting to receive the similar software from DSS in January or February of 2019. So there's the issue of the year-end cutoff. However, the transaction should not be recognized as revenue. So Sarah is arguing that the transaction should be recorded as a swap transaction in 2019, whereas Paul Henley wants it to be recorded as revenue in 2018 because he wants the company to meet its earnings targets. Sarah's position follows GAAP. Paul Henley's does not. However, there was a similar transaction that was recorded in 2017 in the prior year. There was a side agreement with a customer after they recorded a revenue transaction that could have been returned for a full refund within 30 days at the end of 2017. Sarah Young went along with recording that transaction as revenue even though it didn't follow GAAP because the audit work was completed before that transaction expired. So the transaction cancellation would have happened within 30 days of January 1st, and the audit work extended beyond that. So she was comfortable with the recording of revenue in 2017. So this new transaction in 2018, if they follow Sarah Young's advice, that'll obviously follow GAAP. There won't be any issues with the audit. However, Paul Henley's approach to that transaction may incur audit sanctions from the audit team. So what's at stake? As far as Sarah Young goes, she is worried about her ethical obligation as a CPA, obviously her professional reputation, and also she wants to continue having a good relationship with the audit committee and the engagement team. Whereas Paul Henley is more concerned with shareholder expectations. He wants to make sure the company's revenue targets are met so that they continue getting more investors, so that the stock price improves continuously. So they shared some financials, and net income has increased from 2013 through 2017 every year. However, the 2018 projected net income is down a bit, so that's obviously a concern. And if they don't record this transaction, it will impact that further. In addition to the revenue targets, he's also concerned about bonuses that will be paid out to Sarah Young, to Paul Henley, and also to Ed Fralin, who is the CEO. So with regard to the 2017 transaction, it was somewhat similar. However, it was a different type of transaction because the revenue was recorded with a customer purchasing the software. It was not a software swap transaction, and because it was because that return period of 30 days expired before the completion of the audit, Sarah Young didn't have a problem with it. But Sarah is concerned that if she goes along with Paul Henley's opinion, which is that a precedent was set, so they should just go along with his opinion and record the revenue in 2018 as well. She's thinking, is this going to become a pattern, and why does this keep happening? So Sarah Young talked to her friend Shannon, and Sarah was a little bit calmer after their conversation, and Shannon told her that she should talk to Paul about the professional ethical obligations as a CPA. As a CPA, he should be able to relate with that obligation. However, if he doesn't, what I would recommend is that she conduct some research and present it to Paul and the CEO in a private meeting, so she could, talk about the rules of FASB and why the swap transaction has to be recorded the way it should be. I would also talk about the company's reputation and the value of shares in future periods, because if they record the revenue in 2018 and then in 2019 they record the offsetting expense, obviously the 2019 numbers will look worse. So what's the point of inflating the 2018 numbers if you're only going to damage your 2019 numbers and still have the same result of damaging the shareholder expectations and also damaging the company's reputation if it comes to light that they were cooking the books, so to speak. So as far as reasons and rationalizations, Paul tells Sarah that it's not a big deal. We've done this before. Sarah's concerned that it's becoming a recurring issue. And shareholder expectations, future growth, bonuses, all of those rationalizations, I think, can be refuted with the fact that if it comes to light, first of all, that the company was not following GAAP, that would be a public relations scandal. But then also, if, in future periods the company ultimately takes a nosedive, that will be an even more difficult situation for the company to deal with. So if none of these discussions lead to any positive result, what I would tell Sarah to do is to speak with the auditor or the audit committee to let them know that she has reservations about the revenue recognition treatment. She could also seek guidance from the SEC Office of the Chief Accountant. So there's a website or other means that you can ask a question of the SEC to ask them for advice on treatment of a certain transaction. And in my opinion, the last resort, other than quitting her job, would be to seek legal representation in case it came to a situation where she was worried about her career, about her job. She could talk to an employment lawyer about the situation, so that she would be legally protected in that case. So overall, it's not an easy situation to disagree with the CFO, especially if you're the controller and you technically, you're the one reporting to the CFO in the situation. How are you going to fight with them on something you don't agree with? But there are some options. Ultimately, the audit committee and the auditor will have something to say about the revenue recognition, and Sarah does have some leverage talking to them. All right, thank you.